This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Views expressed by hosts, guests, or employees are their own and do not necessarily represent ATS or its affiliates. Mention of any company, product, or service is not an endorsement. While ATS and its sister companies share corporate ties, they operate independently. ATS is not responsible for the accuracy or content statements made. For questions, visit atsinc.com.
Hey, we made it through Blitz Week. Now we're gearing up and concentrating on the 4th of July holiday, which can create a lot of havoc and chaos within the industry. So welcome to Beyond the Road, the ATS podcast. I'm your host, Eric, and have a couple great guests here today within our organization on both of our different asset sides. So if you guys want to take a moment, introduce yourselves, how long you've been with ATS, what you currently do, any other roles you had prior to that.
I'm Christy Anderson. I've been with ATS now for 10 years, account management side, and now I'm in as a business development manager in our ATS Drive-In asset network.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
My name is David Rowe. I'm an operations manager for ATS Specialized. I've been with ATS 22 years, started off in driver manager, did some customer service stuff with some dedicated accounts for the specialized years, and now operations management, working with driver managers.
On the specialized side a lot, right?
Yes, primarily specialized.
All right, so we got logistics, vans, and specialized all here in one table. Got a lot of good information, a lot of a lot of seniority with 10 years, 22, I'm sorry, and 13-ish, I think, for me, or whatnot. So, hey, yeah, I guess industry update. We, like I just kind of said in the opening, got through Blitz Week. I think how does that kind of Blitz Week affect you guys on the asset side of the organization, both I guess customer wise and driver wise?
Well, I know that with our side we had increased capacity with a lot of outside carriers taking the time off. Mm-hmm. We actually had some volume pick up.
Okay.
A lot of smaller carriers were scared, so they got off the road, and our stuff is in good shape, so we just picked them up and kept going. All
right. Awesome to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say a similar thing on the drive-in side is we didn't really notice a decrease at all. There, like you said, there was a lot of carriers that really don't work a lot during Blitz Week.
Right.
And understand that. But we really didn't see any disruption within our customers.
Okay.
So we got through it just fine.
Awesome. Yeah, prior to that, and I got our main Blitz Week podcast, we had a couple previous drivers on, and they just talked about it. It's really interesting to hear kind of their side of what can happen and how. I think JR said that when he was driving, he was coming through Pennsylvania, got stopped, went through a whole Blitz Week check, and then crossed the border in Ohio, and 30 minutes later got pulled over by Ohio trooper and for another check. Luckily, he used, I don't need this as a get out of jail thing, but the trooper was able to look at that and sent him on his way. But yeah, it's just great to hear. I mean, informative to hear all these different sides of the organization and how it can impact. We're heavily kind of more on the logistics side because our partners, they are a little nervous out there of those things happening and the time frame that it can take to move freight. But got through that, and again, concentrating or refocusing our attention here on the 4th of July. And so, I mean, it's summertime, right? A lot of things going on. So what's top level, top mind? Like, why is the 4th of July? Why does it matter in the freight industry?
Well, I mean, a big thing, just like any holiday that comes up, you're going to have a surge in the volumes coming up a few months before. Warehouses, DCs have to get stocked up. So you're looking at a couple months before, especially during, the 4th of July holiday, when you're looking at the time now, May, June, of when things are really starting to pick up. If not, you're already into it. Mm-hmm. So you're going to see a surge in volume, especially around this time, and you'll see it continue up until the holiday.
Right.
Yep.
I think you get through Memorial Day, and then boom, right into all that freight, from outdoor patio furniture, grills, that type of freight. I think it's Beverages move quite a bit. You see a big volume of some of our customers that we have on the beverage side. So yeah, huge probably volume surges. And how does kind of affect the drivers? What are the drivers typically looking at on as they go into a holiday?
Well, I know there's a bunch of guys that are heading home for the Memorial weekend, and they're already getting set up for both getting a load through the house as well as getting stuff set up coming out. We do everything we can to keep them busy, keeping them profitable. But a lot of it, when they come back out of after Memorial, they're running for the month of June, stockpiling because, again, market's picked up. Now's the time to go, and they're lining their pockets of sorts to prepare themselves to go home for July 4th.
Okay.
So June tends to be a very, very busy month for a lot of drivers.
And then picking up, I guess, on the flatbed side, I mean, you're seeing probably, I mean, obviously you're not moving beverages and probably grills or whatnot, but I mean, the construction is probably booming. And
it's a huge, and that's obviously the warmer weather for June and July runs through. So every project is full tilt. I mean, if the crane isn't unloading somebody, they're doing something wrong. So when there's nasty weather, obviously we get some slowdowns, but everybody wants all of their bricks and sticks to be building up the job sites and finish it out.
Okay. Do you feel it's kind of the surge is just everywhere across the United States? Or, because when we're getting out of, finally thaw, right? I think that just kind of, did Minnesota just kind of recently come out of?
Michigan was one of the last ones.
Michigan was one of the last ones. So we're coming out of the OD requirements of thaw. So probably things are picking up there. I mean, is it kind of, I would probably say it's kind of, nationwide, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of business has been picking up.
Yeah, I think, especially on the dry van side, kind of across the United States, you're going to see that volume pick up. Basically everywhere around is going to celebrate the 4th of July. So you'll see a lot of things in the Midwest and the Southeast, production plants, a lot of, retail consumer goods that are going to happen. Same thing out in California and the Southeast with produce, things just across the board are going to be picking up, coming in through ports and things like that. So up in the Northeast also. So people are really starting to start purchasing things. Stores are going to start stockpiling, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we still have a little bit of probably produce coming in out of the south. We're coming over from Florida, Texas, Southern California, etc. And then just taking that volume and the importance of getting fresh produce delivered on time. And then throw in the surge of volume on stuff for the holidays. Certainly, as a shipper or a customer looking at, volumes, pricing, but I think really being flexible and talking with your transportation partner, provider to kind of lay out a game plan for that over the weekend, or even before the holiday, like you did talk about, right?
Yeah, for sure. One of the main things that shippers can do is figure out, what their schedule is going to look like, especially over the 4th. You're going to have those drivers that are going home not only just for that holiday, but 4th of July is on a Friday this year, so they're going to go home probably before that, and possibly stay out, that Saturday, Sunday, even through Monday. Mm-hmm. So being flexible with your shipments and just communicating which shipments are the critical shipments and which ones have a little bit more flexibility if you're going to have more traffic out there. There might be more delays. You're also going to run into times when a driver's going to get to a shipper or receiver and they're closed, or they're only working skeleton crew. So communicating that with your carriers and telling them, hey, these facilities are going to be open, these ones are going to be closed. Give some leniency on it, when they can pick, when they have to deliver, being able to take loads through the driver's domicile, where if they're going to go home, things like that.
Right.
Drop trailer options, all those are great for, to make sure their shipments are going to get picked up, and, communicate early so you're not a last minute kind of getting in there and having a surge on your spot prices.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You stole my spots. I was actually going to
podcast over. Christy took the Christy wins.
I wanted to try and touch base. July 4 is on a Friday, and
luckily, right. I was going to ask that, especially on the driver's side of it, when it's on a Tuesday or Wednesday, well, how much more chaotic does it happen?
Yeah,
why don't you go ahead? Having
it on a Friday actually, in my opinion, makes the most sense and is the most beneficial for both customers and drivers.
Yep.
If a customer knows what they need to get out and they can have it ready to go earlier in the week, that Tuesday, Wednesday, they're increasing their availability for drivers, thus to get them picked up, and the drivers can get home instead of having a smaller, it's not ready until noon on Thursday. Well, you have less driver capacity on that day.
Yep.
So now you're going to look at that spot rate quote, and it's going to be higher because now you don't have the flexibility of having a driver that lives closer to the destination or can live between A and B. Now you're stuck with who's ever close versus, hey, these can pick up between Monday and Thursday, have at it. And then setting the delivery as such. And then working with the carrier to say, yep, these places want it Tuesday or Monday or sometime in the next 7 days is good.
Right.
That gives the load planners and the drivers that flexibility of, I can use this guy and bring it home, or nope, sorry, I don't have a truck for you.
Right. And I think that's the big thing is that how, continue to try to look at it as like, it's one big partnership, right? All the way from the customer, the ATS customer to the ATS driver or our partner driver and everybody in between that, right? Like, how do we all work together to make sure that the customer succeeds and while our drivers succeed too, right? And I think, David, you bring up a huge part is just that communication of understanding the open, and you said it too, but just being flexible and over the holidays, right? And any holiday, and we just dealt with it yesterday for Memorial Day, was customer wanted something picked up on Friday, deliver Tuesday, and it was kind of, you're like you talked about, you're gonna condense your driver availability. And so we had that phone call, and they're like, okay, yeah, we understand that. We can open it up a little bit. You can get it Thursday or Friday, or if you need to, pick it up next Tuesday, and we can kind of work out all through that. And without having those kind of open conversations with your customers and with the understanding that where the drivers come from too, is that it can leave your customer and a driver in a bad spot where, hey, let's be open, let's all work together to figure out what works best for everybody based on timing. And because if it's not timing, then it's pricing, right? And as people shippers and customers try to continue to watch their budget, hey, being open and flexible.
Yeah, help us. Give us a little more time. We can honor that rate, but we're going to need this time frame versus you're choosing the time frame. Well, then we have to choose the rate.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and also just, talking with your carriers and what they expect, especially if they're, have asset drivers. How many drivers are they forecasting to be going home during this time? What do they think they can handle? Because you might have a contract with that customer, and you want to obviously honor your contracts and your rates and your volumes. But everyone should understand, some drivers go home, and maybe it's a customer that doesn't typically allow third party or logistics to cover with their drivers, but during a time like this, would they be open to something like that?
Yeah.
So just communicating what the carrier is expecting to happen during this time can really alleviate a lot of issues that can happen during the week if both sides aren't having those conversations before. Great point.
Rate fluctuations. I think big one is we pointed out it's a holiday weekend, right? So there's OD restrictions, right?
Yep.
Typically happen probably July 3rd?
Some places, yeah. A number of states will probably shut down afternoon of July 3rd, and there'll be no travel on the 4th. Probably no travel on the 5th.
Until Monday, probably.
Yeah.
What's that, the 4th, 7th?
Yeah.
7th?
In some cases.
If you're a customer or shipper out there looking to move heavy haul or over-dimensional freight, most likely looking at the option of really being flexible on getting it out prior or holding it after. So I'm thinking something that did come in my head too there is that just that flexibility helps out, right? Like you talked about, if you can do Tuesday to Thursday and you're shipping from Atlanta to Denver, you may, by having that flexibility, you can find drivers that, hey, you're domiciled in this area, I can pick this up on Tuesday and get home for the holiday weekend, and then get back on the road on Monday and have it delivered out on Monday or Tuesday. So,
the ones that I always think about are the ones from the Northeast down to Texas, or Texas up the Northeast. If you're shipping on the right time, you have a whole lot of driver options to pick up from Central Texas, going all the way up into Baltimore, New Jersey, Connecticut. There's a lot of drivers that live between there. Versus, I need to pick up in Baltimore and it goes to West Virginia. Well, yeah, your opportunities are different.
and getting that planned as soon as possible, right? And getting
Absolutely.
so that your transportation partner can start finding those available trucks, so that when those drivers or those load planners are sending trucks into Central Texas the week before, how early can they start looking at freight? Hey, I know I want to get back home for the 4th. What freight is heading back there? So the earlier you can plan your freight, especially around the holidays, the better off you're going to be finding trucks and just pricing too, right?
Yep, having it booked and have it set up with their carrier so they can send a truck.
Yeah, and even on those smaller shipments, even if you have a 200-mile load, communicate that as early as possible, because there might be a driver that's delivering on July 2nd, and he's like, well, there's nothing on the books. I might as well just go the 100 miles home.
Yeah.
Well, if there's that short lane that we can connect before then, your load gets delivered still. It's great to get a driver home. Your spot rate's going to be lower, or you can just, kind of guarantee that capacity if you have it ahead of time. That way everybody involved can plan out that load. Great.
Right, definitely. And then I think too, like, just add buffer times, right? I think there's a lot of more traffic, just public traffic on the road, and especially if you're an over the road driver, it's just more. If we go from St. Cloud here down to Minneapolis, or I had to go down to south part of Minneapolis last week, and the amount of road construction just going on right now is absolutely bananas. So throwing the fact that end of a lot of municipalities are probably going through road construction, and just adding times in. Don't be trying to get a load during the holiday or before or after the holiday. Hey, load in the morning, I want you to go 400 miles and deliver tonight, right?
Yep. Yeah, and really just, it goes back to communicating also which loads of yours are going to be critical loads. If something happens where, there's a last minute load that comes in and it must deliver by X date or must pick up by X date, expect to obviously pay more for that during the holiday season. But if that one has to deliver at a certain time, say, hey, but this other one that your driver was going to pick up, that one we can push out to deliver Monday, Tuesday, or the next week. So if there is any shipments that have to deliver or have to pick up, communicating that as early as possible is going to be key.
Right. Let's bounce over kind of the driver's side. You talked a little bit about it, Dave. But how does the 4th really impact that driver's side? Kind of more in depth.
Well, I mean, they're, most times they're running for the month of June. They're coming off of a holiday. They want to get back in it. So, I mean, the downtime and the vacation time they're taking during that holiday, they're either working right up to it or they're trying to get out right after it and make that money. It is beneficial. July 4th falls on a Friday this year, so they're having more opportunity to be productive in hauling that freight. They are obviously, just like all of us, they want to have their time off. So they're very concerned about making sure that it can pick up on time. It's ready when it's there, when they're there, it's ready to unload when they get there. Touching base with crews and skeleton crews. Nobody wants to show up expecting to be home at 4 and be like, oh, there's nobody here to unload me. Where did this go?
Yep.
How do I get home now? And then being stuck in that lurch and that unknown.
Yeah. I think that's a huge thing to think about, is making sure if you're a planner, even the customers, make sure that you're talking with your planner, you're talking with where are you picking this up at, or where you're delivering this to, is what are their hours, especially on July 3rd. Like, the last thing you want to do is assume somebody's gonna be open at 2:00 in the afternoon the day before the holiday, and your driver rolls in at noon and they're shut down for the rest of the week, and that causes a major issue, right?
And having everybody that's, put themselves in the driver's seat if they can, it's like, do you want to show up someplace and, oh, sorry, you're not getting home. Well, I had vacation plans.
Right.
Now what am I going to do?
Yep.
Nobody wants that unknown. Nobody wants to be stuck. So if you could put yourself in that situation, how would you feel if you found out you weren't getting home for the holiday? You were stuck being 200, 400 miles from home.
Yep.
You're going to work a little bit extra getting that information, right? Okay, yeah. Please get that information so that we all can work together.
Yep. So just, making sure that pre-plan, I talked to the sales team on our side, making sure that, hey, it should happen for every load we're doing, but especially around the holidays, like, we're calling out every shipper and every receiver to make sure, hey, here's what's going on. Is that line up with your hours or whatever it may be? Just, like like you said, David, if there's a situation, drivers, they don't really have a PTO bank to use, right? It's if they're taking their time off, that's on them, right?
Yeah, in some cases, in many cases. So that's why we want to make sure that we're setting them up
Right.
for success, which means pushing ourselves a little bit more and pushing our customers a little bit more. Hey, where are you at? Have you confirmed? Who can I talk to? Who's on site? Who's in charge?
That is a big thing too, because we'll definitely get, on the carrier side, you're going to get emails from your customers. Hey, this is what this facility hours are during the holiday, but that might been from last year, and they're just kind of resending it out. So a good, tip, account manager wise, whoever it's going to be that within your company that is setting these appointments, call over and just confirm that they're going to be open, especially if it's a overnight thing, or if it's going to be on Friday. There's going to be a lot of places that are closed that maybe this year they're closed, but last year they weren't, just depending on what day of the week it is. So just because they were open last 4th of July doesn't mean they're going to be open this 4th of July.
Right.
So just double checking that.
Are they taking a 3-day weekend or a 4-day weekend?
Right.
Plenty of places are like, oh yeah, we're closed Monday. Oh, well, there goes that day.
Yeah.
Right.
It is funny. Sometimes you'll call out and be like, oh no, we're closed on Monday. And it's like, well, Monday's not a holiday. And it's like, oh, okay. After, whatever holiday came up. But yeah, so doing that double check is great for the customer wise. Then you can let them know. You're also letting the shipper know, hey, we're not going to pick this up because of X reason. And then, you're not stranding a driver somewhere until, somebody's back on.
And talking about, as you guys are talking about, even Monday, like how the holiday's on a Friday, we have Saturday, Sunday, but it doesn't, Monday morning at 7:00 doesn't come and everything's all normal again, right? There's a lag that happens, coming out of a holiday.
Absolutely. For me, I always think of how far away from the house is the delivery. We don't want these guys driving when the traffic is crazy. Okay, well, if you're going up to the lake house and you leave Friday night, okay, well, traffic's going to be crazy. That's the 4th,
right?
Even on Thursday and running on 15.
Sure.
So it's like the traffic's going to be worse on that Thursday, and it's probably going to be almost as bad on that Sunday. That entire day Sunday, because everybody else is moving their way back from wherever they were going home. So now, is the driver going to leave out of the house Sunday night, or is he going to spend that weekend? Well, my guess is he's going to spend that full weekend and leave Monday, which means now your deliveries aren't 7 a.m. Monday morning. It's probably 11, noon, 1. Again, that's that holiday hangover for a lot of those job sites.
Because a lot of times, like you said, a lot of times those drivers aren't living a mile down the road from where they're delivering at, right?
Exactly.
So that giving that buffer, that time frame for that Monday. And then also, if you're a shipper, try to avoid as much as possible. I need these loads out at 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning on Monday for the very same thing, right?
Yep.
You got drivers going to destination to deliver after a holiday morning of Monday, the day after, the weekend.
Right.
And so really concentrating of now the capacity more so opens afternoon, maybe even Tuesday.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of going to say too. And that goes back again to making sure you get your orders over to your carriers as early as possible, because then, the team should be trying to set up, okay, this, the driver's expected to come out Monday morning at 8. Let's set him up with a delivery that needs to happen by 10 a.m. That's only 20 miles away. So hopefully they can start setting some of those things up. But yeah, a lot of these guys are going to be hundreds of miles away. So if you have any flexibility on a Monday or a Tuesday or an afternoon, or just waiting really until the carrier, if there's that option that needs to be a live offload, kind of wait till they can communicate back to you, hey, this is what driver I have, this is when we can be there. Just any flexibility is really going to help with making sure the load gets covered and not having a huge increase in your spike if it is a spot quote.
Okay.
Yeah, just having it on the books, having your carrier aware, hey, I've got 2 loads, 6 loads, 9 loads, whatever the case may be, and knowing, okay, this one has to be out at 7 a.m. to make that delivery appointment versus, that one's not as important. Okay, you just did the same concept before the holiday.
Yep.
Use the same concept right after. If it's super hot, you're going to have to schedule it that way. You're going to have to pay that premium to get that guy that isn't sitting at the house for the holiday. You're going to have them sitting on your doorstep waiting.
Yeah, possibly coming out of the house a little bit early on Sunday to get to wherever it may be, and so that that hey, I'm leaving.
Yep.
Yeah. And it goes the same with picking up too. If you have a shipment that you want picked up on Monday,
Yep.
be aware that a lot of these deliveries are going to happen later in the day on Monday or possibly rolling into Tuesday. So if you need something picked up Monday morning at 7 a.m., it goes back to making sure that is on the books long before the weekend gets here.
Yep.
So, you're going to have a lot of shippers that, might not expect it, but a lot of these drivers, like we said, are not going to be delivering off, and then the deadhead in between the loads, just setting everybody up for success.
Yes,
with a Monday afternoon pickup is going to kind of be your best bet,
right? Especially on that freight that even if it is important has to get out Monday. I just recommend anytime you can get that pushed a little, because then also what you're doing is you're trusting over a holiday weekend with even maybe office staff that's a little bit less because it's a holiday, where there's now 3 days of Friday, Saturday, Sunday of holiday transit. And if that driver gets delayed, how are you gonna how can your partner respond? I think we do a really good job here, but at the same time, if we've got to respond, okay, can we find a new truck if one of our drivers had an issue, if a partner had an issue? Okay, now how do I get a hold of somebody Saturday or Sunday to find a new available truck to be there 7, 8 o'clock in the morning on Monday?
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of things that can definitely happen over the weekend.
Yes.
So anything that customers, shippers, receivers can do to just give a little bit of leniency during the holidays, even after the holidays. There's always a disruption in the supply chain when a holiday comes up. So just having that flexibility is great.
Flexibility. David talked about a little bit of best practice on the driver's side. I guess what can dispatchers or on the asset side, what can they do to help drivers kind of get home for the holiday?
Well,
what do you guys look at doing?
Well, I know that you're trying to look ahead as best as you can. So you're trying to make sure that your load planners and your driver managers are looking at the inbound areas, so where your driver is going to go before the holiday. So if you want to be home on that Thursday night, the 3rd, I would say that you probably want to be somewhere 900 to 1,000 miles away from home that Monday, Tuesday, so that you have time to pick up a load to get you back through on time. Obviously, everything needs to work perfectly, but that's your key. And making sure you're managing your hours of service and you're putting yourself in the right spot to succeed at that. So don't take a load out to the mountains of Montana to deliver on end of June, because you're not going to get back to Tennessee on time. It's it's not likely to happen. So being in the right position and having the hours of service to jump when the customer says, "Hey, here we go, let's go." Everything needs to line up, but you can set yourself up for success by having the hours and being in the right spot.
Okay. Along with that too, but we talk a lot about the capacity shrinking, and because the drivers are going home, but there's a certain percentage of drivers that stay out for the holiday because of that very reason, right? Like the capacity has shrank.
Yeah.
And there's a surge in construction.
Loads.
Pick your loads if you're running as a shipper, customer understand that if you need that freight to go, that you're going to see that in capacity, and you're going to, which is going to obviously affect the pricing. That kind of price can affect greatly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't think we're ever going to find a day that you go out on the highway or the interstate and there aren't semis driving, so just because it's a holiday doesn't mean everything shuts down by any means. There's definitely those drivers, I think, that on both of our sides that are like, it's a holiday, I'm gonna just run and make some money, and that's kind of what they like to do, and then maybe take a random Tuesday, Wednesday off at some other point. So yeah, the supply chain doesn't shut down by any means.
Yep.
We're going to be staffed. We're going to keep going. But it's also a good point for shippers to, if you have any GPS tracking that you aren't currently set up with, try to get that set up with your carriers before. If you're somebody maybe you don't have Macro Point or EDI, check if your carriers have a homepage, like we have our customer homepage where they can look at where our drivers are, because
portal.
The customer portal,
all of their
freight. So you can look to see, if it's maybe Saturday and we're supposed to be delivering Saturday afternoon, and maybe you don't want to send out an email, you just want to log on quick to see where the driver is. It's a quick check, and I don't know if a lot of other carriers have that, but just setting up any type of tracking that you can do instead of trying to get, somebody on the weekend team of a holiday might be a little delayed there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other best practices that we can think of? We talked about being proactive, flexible, before and after, understanding capacity surges, drivers understanding, kind of the schedule and how they should align themselves and where they should be with their schedule based on their needs and wants to be home. Anything else off the top that we're missing out on here about kind of how to make sure customers and drivers alike can succeed?
I think probably the only other thing I can think of from the, the customer side is we talk a lot about confirming with the shippers and receivers, but if your customer isn't necessarily your shipper or receiver, there confirming who they have on their escalation point.
Yep.
So if we run into a situation where a driver gets somewhere and the receiver's not answering, the shipper's not knowing anything, your normal customer contact isn't available, they're at the lake, do they have somebody that's going to be staffed 24/7 that our team can reach out to try to escalate?
Okay.
Yeah, especially on some of those, more critical deliveries and shipments, there's nothing more aggravating than finding out the day of, oh, well, now what do I do? Well, as a carrier, can we leave the freight on your doorstep? We can come back in a couple days whenever you have people there, or are we forced to take it with us someplace?
Yeah.
Or are we forced to leave the driver with it to protect it?
Yeah.
All of those things are different costs to someone.
Yes.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just a simple communication mistake where we thought, we were told the delivery's at 8 a.m. That's what, the communication that went to us. And then we get there, nobody's there, can't get a hold of anybody, driver leaves, and it turns out, they were told it was 10 a.m. So now we left with a load that's eventually going to have to come back because we didn't have a point of contact. So anyone to talk to throughout the whole weekend and on the holidays is key.
So making sure we're doing the drivers and transportation partners alike, doing the pre-calls, making sure we're contacting the right people. If not, we're getting a hold of our customers or whomever. Like, hey, I can't get a hold of this contact. Even if hey, I've left a couple voicemails and I still haven't heard back. Escalating that to whomever it is. I don't want to be in a position where I just assumed we left 3 voicemails because that's the right place, and suddenly it's like, hey, this isn't the right person that you were supposed to talk to.
And escalating it early enough.
Yeah.
You don't want to wait until Thursday. Like, no, that's not when you have a problem.
Yep.
If you haven't spoken to someone the day before, you probably should be squealing to somebody else.
Right.
If you're picking it up on a Monday, there's zero reason you can't make a call or someone can't make a call on Tuesday just to make sure everything lines up.
Yep.
Don't wait till the day of.
Yep. Pre-plan from the get-go, and I think it can help alleviate a lot of the issues and concerns that through the whole chain of the supply chain from customer to driver can certainly help out. So, I don't think when we talked about, and luckily it was a Friday holiday. It is kind of when it's those Tuesday, Wednesday holidays and with short mile freight, the long mile freight, you just never know who's coming out of the office, who's leaving when, and when are they coming back out on the road.
Yeah, those holiday days are really wonky because you don't know when those job sites are going to be working or not. It's the holidays on a Wednesday. We gave them Wednesday, Thursday, Friday versus Monday, Tuesday. It's like, okay, well, what are we supposed to do? How do we set that up? Again, communicating with your customers and your deliveries and the driver so everyone knows what's going on.
Yeah, so I think a lot what we talk about is pre-planning, working hand in hand with your transportation partner, and having that relationship, that partnership, to make sure throughout the whole industry everybody's succeeding from that driver, which is so vital and important, making sure that they have the right information for pickup times, delivery times, contacts, equipment, such. All the way to our customers, making sure that they're, the more flexible that they can be, the less stress that can create for their freight, and potentially, or most likely have some better rates. But like you talked about, when it gets into the holiday, if you need stuff to go, just understand if the capacity is really crunched, and that can affect the rates. Other than that, I guess thank you guys. Both first times on the podcast, I do believe.
Yep.
We rocked it.
Wonderful job. Yeah. I think top with some of the top performers in the first go around the podcast. So be sure to check out our ATS YouTube channel for content made just for you. Shippers, you can find the information at the ATS Learning Hub at atsinc.com. Drivers, you can find the Learning Center at driveforats.com. And if you're interested in a new career, we have a lot of job openings out there, atsinc.com/careers. Thanks for joining us today. Have a wonderful 4th of July and be safe out there.